What's up, guys? Welcome to your first Android tutorial for the new Boston. My name is Travis, and before we get started, well, actually what we're going to do in this tutorial is set up the Java JDK, the Java Developer Kit, basically is what that stands for. And before we get into that, I just want to give you guys kind of a little background of who I am, how Bucky contacted me, and all that stuff. My name's Travis, like I said. I had a YouTube channel called Cornboys Android, and then it caught on pretty quickly. It got a few subscribers and all that great stuff. So I started a new YouTube series under my new username, MyBringBack, and basically made those tutorials the same but better quality and better audio and all that good stuff. So anyways, one day I'm chilling at my computer and I get this email from Bucky, and he's like, "Hey man, I really want to teach Android, but I have too much time, or I don't have enough time, basically, and I was wondering if you could set up a series for me for my channel, The New Boston." And I'm like, yeah, I could probably do that. I'm pretty busy. He's like, "If you don't, I'm gonna kill your family." And I'm like, "Whoa, Bucky, you don't have to be so mean. Jeez, man." No, just kidding. Bucky's awesome, and I love what he's doing, giving free education online. And I basically do the same thing with my channel. Not as well. Don't have as many tutorials as Bucky. So basically that's how I got contacted. Just contacted me through YouTube. So let's get into it. Let's set up the Java JDK. So I want you guys go into Google and type Java JDK. Hit enter. It'll be the first link from oracle.com website. Hit this Java SE downloads. And then it'll open up a page like this where you have three options: either the standard Java JDK, the Java JDK plus NetBeans, and the Java JDK plus Java EE. Now we aren't going to really worry about the Java EE or NetBeans because we're going to be using Eclipse, so we don't really need a platform to develop with them because we're going to set that up in the next tutorial. So we're just going to use the standard Java JDK. You want to click that and accept the license agreement. Again, you guys, if you want to read this license agreement, go ahead. It's a good read. It's kind of like the Twilight series. There's happy moments, there's sad moments, and you just get hooked to this agreement license. So if you guys have some free time, check that out. And then all you're going to do is basically decide which JDK you want. Again, if you're running on Linux, you're going to choose one of these, Solaris and Windows. So basically just click your Windows one. Most likely that's what you guys are developing for. And if you guys are on Mac like I am, you won't actually have to download the Java JDK because basically Apple updates that for you automatically and you won't have to worry about it. But so you can basically skip this tutorial if you guys are running on Mac. Now, just like any other time you download something, you put it in your downloads folder or wherever you guys want to save it and hit OK, and it will download for you. But the problem comes, or the difficult part of the JDK, is setting it up. Now I know Bucky has a video in his Android development, or his Android series, that he's going to start himself, and that'll kind of walk you guys through how to do it if you guys are on Windows. But if not, I want to show you guys another place you can go to get that set up properly. It's just my website, mybringback.com, and then go into the tutorial series right here, and under the Java programming, I know we're doing Android, but it's under the Java programming, the basics. Just click that and it'll be the first tutorial, or the first little link up here called setting up the JDK on your computer. It kind of gives you just a walkthrough of how to do that. I know this tutorial is pretty lame because I can't actually walk you guys through it because again I'm on a Mac, so I won't be able to install the software and follow these instructions. But hopefully you guys can understand everything. I kind of broke it down into bulletin points that are pretty simple for the most part. If you guys still need some help, just leave a comment on this page and I'll check it out and I'll get back to you. But otherwise, just follow along and it'll get set up for you. So thanks again for watching, guys. I know this is the boring stuff, installing the software we're going to need to develop for Android, but soon enough we'll get into the fun stuff, making applications and all that great stuff. So I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Again, thanks for watching. Have a good one. What's up, guys? Welcome to your second Android tutorial. And what we're going to do in this tutorial is, again, some boring stuff like installing software. And the software we're going to install is Eclipse. So go into Google, type in Eclipse or download Eclipse. I'm going to say Eclipse download. And it should be the first link from eclipse.org/downloads. We're going to click on that, and basically what Eclipse is an IDE which will make developing a lot easier for us. It's going to give us some error checking, some shortcuts, just basically some references, so we won't have to remember exactly every line of code that we're going to use, for the most part, by memory. It's going to be a lot simpler for the most part, and that's how we're going to integrate the SDK as well. So here we go. There's a lot of choices for Eclipse that we can download. What we want is the Eclipse IDE for Java developers, and over here is your platform. It should choose it automatically for you, but just in case, you can click Windows or Mac OS. And we're going to download the 32-bit. Even if you have a 64-bit, we're just going to work with 32-bit for now, so it doesn't, whatever. So we'll click that, and here's your download links. Down here you can choose some other links that you may want to download from. That might go a little bit quicker. Or you can just select this this one that they're featuring for the most part. So just click that, and it's a standard download. As you can see right here, I already have it downloaded because it's almost 100 megabytes. I'm actually going to install it for you guys because this computer doesn't have it set up for the most part. So there we go. We install it. I'm going to try and find it, make sure I install it in the right place. Yeah, under my downloads right here. What I'm going to do is now move this whole folder into my hard drive, or for you Windows users, your main hard drive, which is like your C drive. So just move it into that folder, and then we're going to open it up by opening the Eclipse folder and clicking this icon, which basically looks like a croquet ball, or like, I don't know, a third grader's painting or something. So open that up, and that's going to start our Eclipse. Yeah, we know it's from the internet. We're going to show it anyways, or open it anyways, because we're trusting like that. And it's going to start up Eclipse, and here's the workspace that we're going to create. Now basically, I'm using my buddy's computer, which is Jake, but basically we're going to set up a new workspace, and we're going to do this within our documents for the most part. And what we're going to call this workspace, or we're going to create it by right-clicking or clicking this new folder here and saying the new Boston. Now this is where we're going to, again, create a workspace. And what a workspace is the way to organize all of our Java classes, all our resources that we want to use, and all that good stuff. So we're going to call that the new Boston. Hit open, and now that's where our documents are. Now we're just going to click OK. And also, for you guys wondering, the Java JDK that we installed last time, most likely Eclipse will still work, even if you guys don't download that, because it's going to have some sort of Java on your computer. But you guys wanted to get the most recent one so we could use it for like Google Maps and signing our project and getting it onto the marketplace, which we'll get into later. But now we have Eclipse set up. We exited out of, sorry, I kind of skipped over that, but there's a welcome screen. It's boring, ugly, and from the 1980s or something. So we exited out of that welcome screen. The X was up here somewhere. So just click that, and then you'll get this, which is basically the layout of Eclipse. And what we're going to do is set up the ADT reference. So what I want you guys to go to, or where I want you guys to go now, is in Google, type in Android ADT. Hit enter, and it'll be this first link from the developerandroid.com page /SDK/Eclipse ADT. Click that, and here's the developer page. It should be on this page. If not, but you guys are on the developer page, you guys can click right here where it says ADT plugin for Eclipse, and scroll down to the point where it says installing the ADT plugin and downloading the ADT plugin. So it gives us a link. What we're going to do is copy this link by Control-C or Command-C, whatever you guys are on, Windows or Mac. And then we're going to copy that link, and what we're going to do now is go back into Eclipse, and under this Windows tab for for if you guys are on Windows, it should be under the Windows tab, and right down here there'll be a I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry. On both Windows and Mac, it's under the Help tab, and it says Install New Software. So we're going to click that, and we're going to now paste that link right here and hit Add. Now we can add a name to this, so we're going to just add a name, so Android ADT, and again you guys can paste the link right here. That's the location link, and hit OK. And it's basically going to get the developer tools for us that we're going to need for Android programming. So that might take a little bit. We're just going to click this, hit Next, and our computer will freeze and probably crash. No, I'm just kidding. So there you go. Now we just hit Next again. You guys should have 4 things within there as well, and we have to accept this license agreement for all of these as well. So just do that and read through those again, because it's super entertaining, great stuff within these agreements. Just hilarious, the comedy in there. It's, oh man, it's such a great read. So if you guys want to read that, otherwise just hit accept and finish, and it's going to install the software for us. And then I'll catch up with you guys in the next tutorial where we'll, do some more fun installing software. So, but soon enough we'll get into the programming and the actual great stuff that we want to do. But basically that's it for this tutorial. I'll see you guys later. Peace. What's up guys? Welcome to your 3rd Android tutorial for the new Boston. Again with me, Travis, and what we're going to do in this tutorial is something super exciting. We're going to install some more software that we're going to need for developing an Android. So I was hoping you guys were looking forward to that. And what we're going to actually install today is the SDK. So we're going to go into Google again and type Android SDK. And basically the SDK has all these methods that we can use for Android programming, and it'll allow us to basically develop for Emulator, and for our phone. So we're going to download that so we can actually do some Android programming. And you click the first link, it's the download section from the Android developer page that we've been to before. This time it's under the Android SDK starter package download. We have some choices here. If you guys want, if you're on Windows, you can do the recommended one. If not, you can also download this. It's pretty simple either way. So pick one of your options. Again, for Mac, just click here, and I've already downloaded it. I think it's like 23 megabytes, so it won't take too long, unless if you guys are on dial-up. And if you are, I'm sorry. But what we're going to do now is basically I'm going to go to the place where I downloaded this. It was within. Okay. It's right here within the Downloads tab, and it's a zip file, so you're gonna have to extract it. Hopefully you guys have an extractor already. If not, I believe there's WinZip, that's free. I don't know all the free ones, but there's definitely some freeware out there to unzip stuff. So I clicked that, and it basically made a folder right here within the same project, or within the same folder or download folder, and you want to drag this over to your main hard drive, for example your Macintosh hard drive or your C drive if you guys are on Windows. And as you can see, it's right here. What we're going to do now is open this up, and if you guys are on Windows, there will be something called the Android, what is it called? The SDK Manager, I believe. It's called the SDK Manager. There's a little green logo of the Android mascot for the most part, that little alien looking dude. You want to click on that. As for Macintosh, what you guys want to do is go into your tools and click Android right here. Now the first time you click it, it might not do anything, so if it doesn't, just exit out of there and click it one more time. It'll load up some stuff, and it loads up this Android SDK AVD Manager. What we're going to do now is set up kind of the platforms that we want to develop for. So we're going to go into Available Packages, and here's our Android repository. I'm going to click that triangle to open it up, because if we download all of them, it's going to take a long time. Even downloading one takes a while. So what we're going to do is download for the Android 2.2 platform. which has an API level of 8. Now basically you guys are probably wondering what these platforms are. Every Android phone is running on some sort of Android operating system, and this is the version of that operating system. Kind of the older phones, maybe like the like the Samsungs that haven't got updated, they're going to be running on like the 1.5. Actually, I'm not even sure if anything's running on 1.5 anymore, but basically you can think of it like that. The older phones have these older platforms, unless if they got the updated software. So if you guys have a certain phone, just check what version it is and you guys can develop for that. Now the API level, again, I'm sorry, just briefly since we're on the platform, the 3 and the 3.1 is Honeycomb, which is, I believe that's what's on their tablet. So if you guys have a tablet, you can develop for that. Now the API levels also are important because when we're developing an Android application, you can use certain methods, like I said, from the SDK, but some of those methods require a certain API level. So if you're developing for the API level 8, you can use all of the APIs up to level 8. But if a method requires API level of 10, we can't use it. So most phones, I'd say for the most part, have the 2.2 or the 2.1. We're going to develop for the 2.2 platform, and we're going to use some API levels of 8. So you guys want to probably select this one, because if you select one of these lower ones and we use an API level 8 method, it won't work. So just stick with me here, click that, and then also down here we have the third-party add-ons where we can basically download some APIs. We're going to get the one from Google, so when we get into Google Maps we can use the API from Google. And again, we're going to select API level of 8, which will be for the 2.2 platform, and then we're just going to hit install selected. Again, APIs are basically like some resources that we can use when developing our applications. All we have to do is say accept all, install. It's my favorite wrap. Basically, instead of reading Mother Goose to me, I would, when my parents wouldn't read me Mother Goose when they were putting me to bed as a child, they'd just say, accept all, install, what's up gangster? That's the kind of lullabies they'd sing me. So that just is ingrained in my head. That's what you guys want to do when you're installing software. And now this is going to take a while. Sorry, I'm kind of weird. But this is going to take a while to install those platforms and those packages that we can use. So I'm just going to talk briefly of how I'm going to teach and basically some stuff about Android and what we're going to get into for the most part. Now, the way I like to teach, or the way I like to learn for the most part, is I like seeing kind of an overview of how things work. I don't really care for the most part of every detail, but in the beginning at least. So basically what I'm going to do, sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts here. What I'm going to do is kind of show you guys some of the basics of Android, but we're going to move kind of fast for the first 20 tutorials so you guys kind of see how everything works. You might not realize everything that's going on, but trust me, you'll learn a lot throughout those tutorials. Not like every detail, but after the 20th tutorial we'll kind of go back and redo some of those things that we've done just a little bit differently and introduce some new stuff so that older stuff makes sense and you guys realize what's going on. I don't know if that description made sense, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of go quickly, and then we're going to backtrack a little bit and cover some of the stuff that we did, and then move forward as well. I won't get into every detail right at the beginning, so if you guys don't like that, I'm sorry, but I will cover every detail just within time. So stick with the series, and it will pay off. I promise you guys, you'll understand Android for the most part after this whole series is done. So just to give you guys an introduction of how I'm going to teach, there it is. And also, Android is so big. There's so many different programming languages you can use with it, but it's mainly, the main programming language is Java. That's basically how we're going to set up our interface, or our navigation, all that stuff. But you can also use C++, you can also use OpenGL-ES, you can use MySQL-Lite, you can what else? XML. We're going to get into XML. That's easy for the most part. But there's so many programming languages. You can use HTML5 as well when you're developing your application. So it's going to be hard covering all those topics and pretty much everything. So I'm just going to stick with okay, so this got done installing, so we're just going to hit OK. I'm just going to cover as much as I can within 200 tutorials, and hopefully you guys will be happy with that. If not, you guys can check out my bring back, and I'll do some additional tutorials on things that you guys request. So there we go. We have our stuff installed, and now when we say installed packages, we can see some of the options that we downloaded. The other thing we're going to do real quickly is set up the emulator. So we're going to say virtual devices up here and hit new, and we're going to call this one DroidX. Again, this will have to be one word. It can't be two words, just one word. So we're going to have no spaces. And what's our target going to be developing for? We're going to have it developed for the 2.2 platform. And this size is basically a virtual SD card. We're going to say something like 100 megabytes, which is kind of overkill, but we're going to go with it. And then just hit Create AVD Manager. Whoops. And hit OK, and we're done for this tutorial anyways. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 4th Android tutorial for the new Boston, again with me, Travis. And what we're going to do in this tutorial is basically set up a package, set up a project that we're going to work with from here on out. So before we can set up a project, you guys want to go into set up your preferences for the most part and locate the SDK that we downloaded in the last tutorial. Now if you're running on Windows, you want to go up to the Windows tab. That's where I got confused in that other tutorial. And under the Windows tab there should be something called Preferences right down here. But on a Mac computer you want to go under the Eclipse tab, and the Preferences is right here. So you click that, and then you go to this folder called Android that's now located, or now you're welcome. Android SDK, you're welcome. Proceed. Alright, computer's frozen. Awesome. So, okay, no it's not. But okay, so sorry for losing focus there. Go into this Android tab, or just click on the Android, and all sorts of errors are coming up. And now what we want to do is locate the SDK folder that we set up. So we're going to hit Browse, and again I told you guys to set it up in your hard drive, so it's pretty easy to find. So just go to your C drive or your main hard drive and look for the Android SDK folder right here. Just click on this folder. You don't want to go into anything in here. Just click on the whole folder, hit Open, and it'll load some or hit Apply, and then it'll load some of our platforms that we downloaded. Again, we downloaded the 2.2 and the Google Maps. So we want to select 2.2 because that's what we're going to start with. Hit Apply or hit OK, and now what we can do is right click within our Package Explorer. Now if you guys exited out of this Package Explorer because you're trying to clean up and now you're like, oh crap, we needed that, it's pretty easy to get back. Down in this bottom left corner you click, and right here is Package Explorer, and then we can just drag and drop this into our workspace. And again, right click, go to New, and you'll either have an Android project right here. If not, that's okay. I don't, obviously. So we're going to go to Other, and we're going to go to this Android folder and set up an Android project like that. Now, this is the basic setup for setting up a new project. We're going to give it a name. We're going to call it the New Boston. And we also need to select our build target. And our build target is, again, what platform we're developing for. We're going to develop for the 2.2. And here's some other things that we need to define. Now we have an application name. This is what's going to appear on the user's end when they're scrolling through all their applications. This is the name of our application. So we're going to leave that as the New Boston. If you guys want to change that, that's okay. The package name, basically we want this to be unique, because when we put our application on the marketplace, if there's another app that has this package name, you won't be able to upload it. So we're going to make it unique. In generally you want two identifiers, so you can say like t.t, and that'd be two identifiers for the most part. But generally what people do to make sure their application's unique is if they have a website, they do it backwards, like com.thenewboston.travis, and that's just going to be our package name. Hopefully that's unique enough for the marketplace. Again, you need two identifiers, and you do that by hitting the period to create a new identifier for the most part. Now this create activity, this is basically the activity or the class that's going to start when our emulator or when our application launches. So we're going to call this starting point, like that. One word. If you guys have two words, it's going to give you an error and you won't be able to finish. So make sure it's one word. We're going to call this activity starting point. We're just going to hit finish, and it's going to set up our project for us. As you can see right here, it gives us an error because it's still building the project. It takes a little bit. Alright, so there we go. We have our project set up, and I'm going to kind of define what this project holds and how to add folders to it in the next tutorial. So hopefully you guys followed along and understood how to establish a new project, and I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. Peace. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 5th Android tutorial for the new Boston. What I'm going to do in this tutorial is kind of give you guys an overview of what this package holds and what everything means. But basically, before we do that, I want you guys to go to the Window tab and then Android SDK AVD Manager. Click on our device and hit Start. And probably you want to scale the size down because a lot of times it's pretty big. So I like to put 6 for the screen size, and that's going to be about 46% of what normally would launch. And hit OK or Start. And there we go. Our emulator's started now. Now I'm going to talk through, like I said, basically this package, and we're going to add a couple additional folders for developing for Android. Now the first folder that you guys see is SRC, standing for source, and this is the code of all of our Java that we're going to develop. And here's our package name that we set up. Within our package name, here's our Java class called starting point. Now we can add additional Java classes within here, or activities that we're going to use. So that, just think of the source as where we're going to keep all of our Java. Anytime we're working with the source, it's going to be Java. Now the gen folder, again, you see our package name within there, and within there we have a Java, again, a code called R. And this is basically our resources. We aren't going to do anything with this ever because basically it generates itself automatically. If you open that up, it kind of shows some resources that set up. It's kind of a reference point, and it's nice that Android will basically generate that for us. So make sure you never mess around with that one. And then the Android 2.2, this is where all the magic is. This is where the power is for the most part. This is our platform. Again, you guys can see the jar. There's an Android jar in there, and basically this holds a ton of different packages. A ton of different packages. And within those packages, they have classes, and within those classes, they have methods. So we can use some methods from this package, these packages as well. So that's a ton of power. As you can see, there's a ton of different packages. I know I said a ton like a ton of times, but yeah, there's a lot in there. Basically just like our package, except they have a lot more classes and a lot more methods within those classes than what we have set up. So basically that's where the Android SDK comes in handy, and we need it because of all the methods. The assets folder we'll get into later within the series. Basically you can keep some resources in there and use the assets decoder for the most part and get those resources. But mainly what we're going to do, or at least start out with, for when we're using resources like images and layouts and all that good stuff, we're going to do that within our resource folder right here. And as you can see, there's 3 drawables. This is where we're going to save some of our images, and this is where we're going to, yeah, pretty much just our images. As you can see, there's 3 different folders. You're probably wondering, why are there 3 different folders? Well, Android phones, some have a pretty good density or pretty good resolution to them, some don't. So basically what you can do is, if you have an image that you're going to use for a game or an app, basically you can save a high resolution or a high density image within this high density pixel, for the most part, folder, and then you can have that same image, the same name, but of a lower resolution that you guys have set up within like the low resolution drawable, and also that stands for medium. So again, you can have the same name, but if you create 3 different images that have different resolutions, you can save them within the appropriate folder, and then when you reference those images in Java, basically the SDK is going to know which one of those images should be run on the phone for, you know, optimization for the most part. So that's pretty cool, and that's why they have 3 different drawable folders. Now our layout folder, this is going to be our XML, basically our layout. This we're going to get into the XML for the most part. If you double click on this main one, it has it set up for us already. This is a main XML called, and all it is hello world starting point. They did define that for us already, and you know, that's basically where we're going to set up our layouts in XML. Now the values tab, basically you can keep values in other references such as strings, and then you can reference those strings within your layouts or within, you know, your Java as well. So again, that's just for values. What we're gonna do quickly, I'm gonna add 2 new folders. We're gonna go right click on a resource folder right there and go new folder, and we're gonna type this or spell this folder RAW for RAR, our RAR folder, and we're also gonna select this package, make sure it's in the right place, and make sure it's the resources, and all lowercase RAR, hit finish, and this is where we're gonna save some sounds for our application. So that's going to be useful. We're also going to create 1 new folder, and we're going to call this one layout -land. Hit OK. Basically, that is going to be for when our phone is tilted on its side. If we want to have an alternative layout, we can put that there. We'll get into that later, but I just wanted you guys to have those folders set up. Now the last thing that we're going to define, or I'm going to kind of describe for the most part, is the Android manifest. This is where everything for the most part comes together. If you guys click on it and go down here on the right side, you can go into the actual XML code. It's a little bit easier for me to explain. Basically, it resources everything that we have, like the version or the API level, the application, and the application icon, which is set to a default that they imported for us, as you can see within the drawable folder. Our application name that we set up when we create our project, our starting point class, or activity for the most part. That's the activity bracket. So this is for one activity called starting point. That is within our application. Basically it, and if you go over here, this activity is our launcher item, so when our activity starts, it's going to look for the launcher item and start this activity starting point. So basically the manifest pulls everything together and adds your resources for all your different activities, and you can set up some sweet stuff within here as well. Now if your application needs to access the internet, or you know, you want to pull some data from a text message that someone gets and then you post it on their Facebook wall without them knowing, basically you're going to use permissions. You need to get permissions, like I want to use the permission of the internet, and you would define those permissions within the manifest, and then when someone downloads your application off the marketplace, they're going to see which permissions your app needs, such as, oh, it needs the internet, oh, it needs you know, a receiver of some sort, oh, it needs to access my camera, what is this application doing? Basically they're going to see that, and then if they want to download it they can, but that's basically the only place that they're going to see what permissions we're going to use. We're going to do that within the XML, or within the manifest. So basically that's kind of an overview. Only other thing I want you guys to do real quick is just right click on your whole package, go to run as Android application, and that's going to load up on our emulator. Again, what's going to happen, I'm just going to briefly talk through everything that's happening. As it's loading, or it's installing onto our emulator, it's looking for the launcher item, like I said, within the manifest. Then it calls this starting point class, and then it will call this starting point class that we set up right here, which is an activity class, and within the activity it sets the content view to r.layout.main. I know this is a quick overview, but r.layout.main, which R stands for our resource folder, then our layout folder, and then our main XML again, which looks like this. So it's going to set the content view to that, and that's basically kind of a quick overview of how the activity works for the most part, and I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. What's up guys, welcome to your 6th Android tutorial for the new Boston. again with me, Travis, and what we're going to do in this tutorial is install some new software that we can use for I'm just kidding. We're getting into the XML and XML programming so we can set up some custom views and some custom layouts. So I want you guys to open up your layout folder and click on this main XML, and you guys will get something like this. Now you can switch between the graphical layout, which is this, and the coding, which is this, by these two tabs down here, graphical layout and main.xml. Basically all I'm going to do in this tutorial is describe what's going on and teach you guys a little bit about XML. It's pretty simple language for the most part, but you know, it might be confusing right at the beginning. You guys will pick this up quickly, I'm almost positive. Now the first line of code you see isn't that important, because anytime we set up a new layout, it's going to give us this code as well. I mean, it is important, but you guys won't have to remember typing this out every time because it's going to define it for us. And basically you need to have that as your first line of code for the most part. And then what we do is we set up a linear layout which starts here and gives some attributes to the linear layout, and it ends here. Basically what a linear layout is going to do is it's going to hold some other items such as a text, and it's going to kind of define basically the layout of those items to a sense. So it's going to kind of categorize them and do all that stuff. Let's see here. Oh, got a new whatever. Alright, so what we're going to do is basically kind of define this linear layout, and or I'm going to describe everything that's going on within the attributes of this linear layout. Now we have this reference basically, and that's all it is. You guys don't, again, you don't have to really remember that, because when we set up a new layout, Eclipse will set up this reference for us. So that's nice. Nice and pretty for new programmers, where you guys don't have to remember the actual file path and type that out each time. And then the next thing that we have is the orientation of our linear layout, which is set to vertical. I was messing around with it, and just so that's why it was changed. And basically what that is going to do is it's going to set all the items within the linear layout vertically. So for example, if we copy this text view, or this text for the most part, and paste it twice, since I cut it instead of copied it. So now we have two text, and we go into a graphical layout. They're placed vertically from top to bottom. That's just how our layout is going to work. Again, we can also set this horizontally, as well as you guys just saw. So I'm going to do that real quickly by typing horizontal and hit save, go to graphical layout, and man, I messed this up. Alright, but you guys should have fill parent. Again, I was playing around with this as well, but just kind of wanted to show you guys what is going on, so that's why I'm doing it this way. Save that, and then we go into a graphical layout, and you're like, where's that other text view? And basically what's happening is being pushed off the screen right here. And I'll explain why that's happening in a second. As you guys just saw, I kind of changed the code, but that's how you guys should have yours set up, because you wouldn't have that changed code. So basically now we're also adding two more attributes to this layout. Basically we're setting the parameters of how big this layout is. And what the parameters are, well, the width is going to fill the parent, so it's going to take everything that's available for the width, so the whole screen's width for the most part. And same with the height, it's going to take all the height that is available to it, and it's going to set that as its basically that's its attributes, or its parameters for the most part. So there you go, you have your linear layout set up, taking the whole screen and set to a horizontal orientation. Now within here we have our text view, which is basically just the text, and again pretty much the same line of codes for these first two. Layout width, we have that fill parent, and as you saw, I changed this to something like wrap content is the other option you can do. And basically this is going to wrap the content of the text, whatever text we have available. So then now if we switch to graphical layout, you can see the pretty much the parameters of this text view is wrapping the content of the text. So those are your two options for the most part that you can use. You can also use, you know, pixels if you want, and we'll get into that later, but basically I want you guys to remember fill parent and wrap content. And same with the height, it's wrapping the content. Now the text says @string_hello, and you're like, no it doesn't, it says hello world starting point. Now basically what's happening is this is using a reference. Anytime you see an @ within the XML, it's using a reference. So it's referencing the string hello, and that string is located within our values. So we have this values and we have this strings. So we're going to say strings, and there's a string called hello. So it's using this reference, and then this is the name of the reference, but it's displaying the value of the reference. So for example, we can set up a new string by clicking add string, and then we can set up a name called ref for reference and say this is a reference, and save it, and then go back into our XML, and we can also just do something like @string_ref, and then we go over into our graphical layout. It says this is a reference, just that new string we set up. The alternative is you can also just type. So you can just type whatever you want without using the @ symbol, as long as it's within quotations, and there you go. You can just display your type. Now the good thing about the references or for strings is basically if you're working for a boss that keeps changing his mind on the title of whatever the application or whatever, if you guys have a title within your app, keeps changing the name, instead of looking through all this code for where you typed the title, you can just refer or set up a title, a reference, and then just go into your string under the values and look for that title and change the value there. So that's kind of the benefit, but hopefully you guys understand a little bit about the layout. Oh, one other thing. There's two ways to kind of close your statements. You can see them both here. Basically, we're setting up our linear layout here, and it's closing down here. Now, basically, anytime you see a /, that's when it's closing. So, example, you can use I just kind of set up two different text views and their closing statements. So we have our text view, and we set up some attributes, and then we use the less than sign, and then we use a greater than sign / text view, and then less than sign to close it. Or if you don't want to type this out every time, you can just do / less than sign for your text. So there you guys go. Quick overview for XML. I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 7th Android tutorial for the new Boston. What we're going to do in this tutorial is basically set up our linear layout for our first application that we're going to build. It's not going to be too pretty or too complex, but it'll get you guys familiar with the XML again. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete this text view, the second text view, and basically what this application is going to be is adding and subtracting to a number according to which button is pressed. So we're going to add some buttons, and we're going to also change some other things within this text view. Now the first thing I want you guys to do is change our linear layout back to vertical, just because horizontal freaks me out. So there we go. And now what we want is, there's no title from the last tutorial. We're going to change our text to something like your total is, and then 0. Something like that. And then save it, and we're going to check that out. That looks pretty good, but that text is pretty small. So let's see what we can do about that. Again, within our text setup part, we can say Android, if you spell it right, and then colon, and you can see some of the methods that we can use. There's quite a few for a text view. And there's one called text size. So we're going to select that one. And what you can do is set up like 45 pixels, and it's a little bit bigger. So that's cool, but the thing is, we don't want to use pixels because like I said before, different Android phones have different resolution for their screen, and some have a pretty high resolution, which will make 45 pixels really small. So we're going to kind of use a ratio by using the density pixels. So this is going to keep it kind of consistent. DP for density pixels. That's going to keep it kind of consistent for all the devices that we're going to be working with, because it's going to be sized according to the density. Now, as you can see, it's big text. It looks pretty nice, but now what we want to do is kind of center this text. So we can say, let's see if we have any methods for that we can do, or actually this one's not very self-explanatory unless you guys do other programming. We're going to say Android layout gravity. And again, another nice thing about Eclipse is if you guys forget what you want to set this equal to, you can just delete that and hit equal, and it'll pull up some choices for you, such as center. So we're going to click center and then check that out. So it centers our layout, or centers our text view. And since our text view wraps the content, it's basically going to center our text as well. But let's say our text is fill parent, or text width, I should say. I'm sorry. Fill parent, and let's see how that looks. Now, as you can see, what it's doing is it's centering basically our parameters, or our size of our layout for the text view. And since the text view takes up the whole screen, it's not really centering the text, because all the center method does is center that layout, or the gravity of the layout. So now what we can do is actually just center the text within whatever our text size is. So we can also do a method called, and this is just to show you guys some more methods. You could have just done the wrap content and the layout gravity equal the center, but you can also do Android gravity instead of layout gravity and set that equal to center as well, and that'll center our text within whatever our width and height is that we set for a text view. So there you go. Just kind of give you guys an idea of some methods that you can use on a text view. The other thing we want for application is basically to add two buttons to it. So how are we going to add a button? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Again, thanks to Eclipse, we can hit the greater than sign, and it gives us a lot of choices that we can choose from, such as a text view. But we're going to look for one called a button. Pretty awesome. It's right there. Now we need to set up what this button is going to do. So we're just going to say Android layout width, and we're going to say something like we can also do 250 dp for density pixels, and Android layout height, we're going to have it wrap the context. So hopefully you guys are kind of getting familiar with XML, even though it's brand new to a lot of you guys. But at least I hope you know what's going on here for the most part, even though we just started with this. So we're just setting up some ID or some stuff for the button, and again we're going to set a text for the button. We're going to say add one. So let's see how that looks. And I don't really like using that type of method, so I'm just going to hit it or close it like that. So that looks kind of strange, not exactly what we want, because the height, I'm sorry, that was supposed to be wrap content. Again, this will just wrap the content of our text. So let's check that out. Looks pretty good. We might want to center it as well, so we're just going to say Android layout gravity equals center. And also we might want to change the text size up, just to kind of get you guys familiar with the methods that we have used so far. We're probably going to change this one to like maybe 20 dp. See how that looks. Looks pretty good. And now what we're going to do is copy this button and paste it down there, again within our linear layout, and all we're going to do is say subtract one. Sorry if I'm going fast. I mean, hopefully you guys pick up on this. For the most part, XML is pretty easy, and once you guys start with it and work with it a little bit, you'll be like, why did I ever struggle with that? Because it's pretty simple and it's not too bad. But basically you guys can copy this code. I'll leave the screen right here. But the only other thing we need to do is we need to have a reference, because when we start working in Java, that's where we're going to let these buttons and this text view actually do something. So we need to set up a reference so we can refer to it in Java instead of XML. So what we're going to do is set up something called an ID. We're going to set this equal to, within quotations, @ plus ID, basically saying we're setting up an ID, because when I told you the @ means a reference of some sort, we're setting up a reference. That's why we have the @ plus ID, and then we're going to set this to TV for text view, and we're going to call this one display, because this is the one that's being displayed, or the only text view for the most part. Then we're also going to set up a couple references for each button, so I'm going to just copy this and paste it within our button and change it to button or B, and then we're going to call this one B add, button add, and then we're going to set up a reference for the subtract as well. This is just something I like to do so I know it's a button, so B sub for B subtract. And there we go. We basically have our linear layout set up for our first little application we built, and hopefully you guys kind of understand XML a little bit better now, and I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 8th Android tutorial with me, Travis, for the new Boston. What we're going to do in this tutorial is basically use some of those IDs that we set up in XML and get them into Java and set up some variables pretty much. But the first thing I want you guys to realize is in XML, basically all of these things are considered as views. That's why we saw this text was called text view. Button even is from the view class. Basically all these things are from the view class. You can pretty much think of it like that, and they all are pretty much considered views. Now that'll make sense when we get into Java. So let's open up our starting point Java class within our package under our source folder. And if you guys have no programming background, that's pretty much fine. We'll get into the Java as we go, but the first thing I want you guys to do is go right below this line. And like I said, I'm not right now I'm not going to explain too much about what this is and how Java works. But basically what this is this is our class, and the ending bracket is right here, and within our class we have a method called onCreate. So that's all you guys need to know for right now. Don't look into it too much. For the most part, you see like the public, the class, you're like, whoa, what's going on? Void, but don't worry about it. What we're going to set up is just basically some variables. So the first variable we're going to set up is going to be an integer. It's going to be our counter item, basically a number, and we're going to keep track of our total. So basically, when you're programming, that is called an integer. An integer is a whole number, like a 1, 2, 3, 4, a -1, such as that. And to define your variable, basically you tell, you give it a type, what type you want, which would be an integer, and then you give it a name. So what we're going to do is type int, which stands for integer, again as for a number, and we're going to call this integer counter. That's just the variable, that's the name that we're giving the variable. We aren't setting it equal to anything, but we're just setting up our variables. Now we're going to define a button as well, because we have two buttons, an add button and a subtract button, and so we're going to say button add. And again, I hope you guys noticed that I put a semicolon after both of these lines. That's kind of standard in Java. After each line you want to put a semicolon. And we're getting an error for a button. So basically what I want you guys to do is hover over the button, and you can see we need to import the button, which basically is a class from the Android.widget packet. Again, under this 2.2, there's a package called Android.widget. So that's where the button's located, and so we can use some of the methods. We need to import it. The import comes up here, right here, Android.widget.button. So now we can use the methods from the button class. So there we go. We set up a button variable. Again, it doesn't mean anything. We just set up this variable called add, which is a button. Now we can set up another button called subtract down here as well, but when you want to define more than one button, you can also just hit a comma sub for subtract, or for a second button. So now we have two button variables, an add button and a subtract button. Again, they don't mean anything. And the last thing we need to do is set up our text view. So we're going to say text view, and we're going to call this one display. And again, you guys can name these whatever you want. This is just the names that I'm using, but we do have to use this type, which is a text view. Again, we have to import it so we can use some of the methods from the text view class. So we have our variables set up, and now we want to connect them to the XML. So what we're going to do is go within this onCreate bracket below the set content view, and again that will be this bracket right here. So that way we know we're within our onCreate method. And we're going to set our counter equal to 0, starting out with. So it's pretty simple, just counter equals 0 and then semicolon. And now that set up our variable counter to 0, and again this variable is an integer, and our program's going to know that now that we're working with a number for the most part. And now we also need to set up what our add button is equal to, and to do this it might be kind of confusing jumping right into setting up references right away, but don't make it confusing, and we'll get into this in more detail later, but just within parentheses put button, basically meaning that we're going to use this as a button, and we're going to say find view by ID, just like that. Find view is capitalized, by is capitalized, and ID is I is capitalized. So basically we're finding the view by the ID, and again all those things are views. The button's a view, text view is a view, and we're going to find that view by the ID of that view. So we're going to put within parentheses r dot ID dot, and then we have our IDs that we set up in the XML in the last tutorial. Since we're setting up our add button in Java, we're going to say button add, and then we just have to hit a semicolon at the end of this, and we basically set up our ID. Now to set up again, or we basically set up the connection between XML and Java. So it's pretty simple for the most part. We're also going to do sub equals pretty much the same thing, just for repetition's sake, but find view by ID, and we're going to use a different ID because we need to reference the ID of the sub button. So that's going to be button sub, and then just a semicolon, and we also need to set up our text view. So we're going to say display, which is again a text view type variable. We're going to set that equal to, within parentheses, text view, and find view by ID. You guys will get pretty familiar with the find view by ID method, but as for now, I know I'm going fast and I'm not really explaining too much, but hopefully you guys kind of pick up on something. Again, we'll go back over some of this stuff so it's a lot clearer, or a lot more clear I should say. But basically now we set up what our variables are equal to in XML, so when the person touches one of those buttons, we know that it was touched for the most part. So thanks again for watching, guys. I know we went through this quickly and I didn't really explain any of the Java, or even what why it's in parentheses like this, or what this method is, but hopefully you guys picked up something, and trust me, you'll understand everything as you go throughout the series. Have a good one, guys. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to your 9th Android tutorial for the new Boston. What we're going to do in this tutorial is set up our buttons and basically use a method that's going to make the buttons do something when we click the button. So we're going to just set that up. We aren't actually going to define what the button does when it clicks, but if you guys are brand new to programming, this again will be probably pretty confusing for the most part, but I'm going to try and break it down a little bit, and then we'll review it later on down the road. But I just want to show you guys how to set this up. Now what we've done, we set up two variables called add and subtract. They're both the type button, so they're button variables. And then we set up a reference to the XML again by the find view by ID method. Now also within this onCreate method, so it'll be the second bracket up within there, this is where we're going to set up our OnClickListener. So basically a button needs to set up an OnClickListener, and within the parameter, or basically what that's looking for is a OnClickListener, and the OnClickListener is going to use the method onClick. I know it's kind of confusing, but I just want to kind of talk about it, or tell you guys what it does, or what it's looking for the most part, before we get into it. So again, like I said, since we imported the button class from the package of the 2.2 Android platform, we can use some of the methods from the button class. So how we use a method is we use our variable name, such as add, which again is a button, we hit period or dot, and then we have all these methods we can choose from. And there's one called setOnClickListener. So this is where we're going to set our OnClickListener. As you can see, it takes in an OnClickListener within its parameters. So we're going to set that up. Now we don't have an OnClickListener yet, so we're going to set up a new one. And you do that by saying new, and it comes from the view class, so we're going to say new view.OnClickListener. And again, Eclipse helps you out, so it's going to be this first choice, view.OnClickListener, and it's a method, so that's why there's parentheses right there. We're going to click that, and when you click that, it's going to set up the onClick method as well. So that's what's really nice about Eclipse, and it sets up this onClick method. So when our button's clicked, it's going to do what's ever within these brackets right here. Now, before we get into anything else, I want you guys to use a semicolon and finish off that statement right there, because again, just think of this as one line of code. For the most part, this whole line is basically one line of code, and so you got to finish it off with a semicolon. Now that probably looks really confusing to brand new programmers, and you're like, what is all this junk? Trust me guys, the more you use buttons, the more this will become familiar. I just wanted you guys to get a layout like this so you get kind of familiar with that. Basically, again, a button needs an OnClickListener, so we have to set the OnClickListener. So we set it by using the method setOnClickListener, and that takes an OnClickListener within its parameters. Well, I'm saying that a lot, so it's probably confusing you guys. But since we didn't have one, we had to set up a new one right here, and we kind of defined it by, or there's an onClick method that we can use, and again, this is where we're going to actually make our button do something. So there we go, we set up our button, our OnClickListener for our button add. So we're just going to copy that and paste it down below, and change the add to our other button that we set up, sub. So they both have an OnClickListener set up, and then you can hit Control or Command Shift F depending if you're on Mac or Windows, and it kind of formats it for you. So there you guys go. I mean, that's all this tutorial is. I know it's probably not of much help, because especially for you guys, you new guys, because it looks so complicated, and it really does for the most part if you guys are new, but you guys will get familiar with this, especially as we go on throughout the series. I'll kind of explain, give you guys some more detail. I just don't want to throw on all the information at once. But there you go. That's basically all this tutorial is. Again, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you guys in the next tutorial. We're actually going to make these buttons do something. So I'll catch you guys then. Have a good one. Grandma, I can't play rugby right now. I gotta make these tutorials. We'll play afterwards. Just get out of my room. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 10th Android tutorial for the new Boston. Again, my name's Travis. What we're going to do in this tutorial is basically finish up our Java class, get our application running for the most part, and, you know, let's just hop right into it. Let's do a quick overview of what we want our application to do. Basically, we're going to have this text view change according to whatever our counter variable is. And our counter variable is going to be added to or subtracted by 1, whether the sub button is clicked or the add button is clicked. So let's set up our whatever is within our onClick for our add button. So we're going to do that within this onClick method, again, these two brackets. And when our application starts, our counter starts at 0. So what we want to do is when the add button is clicked, we want to add 1 to this counter object, or this counter variable for the most part. So what we're going to say is we're going to say counter, and we're going to set this equal to, and you can do this a few different ways. You can say counter plus 1, which is a bad way to program, but basically what this is saying is whatever our counter variable is, which is 0, we're going to add 1 to it, and then that's what our counter variable is now going to equal. It's kind of confusing, especially if you guys are huge into math. You're like, what is this? That's impossible. So yeah, we're going to do it a different way. You can also say plus equals 1 like that, and that will just add 1 to the counter variable. Or you can also, you know, this is beneficial for doing, like, you know, if you wanted to add 10, add 10 to the counter integer variable. But also we can do, if we're just going to add by 1, which we are, we can use plus plus. So basically that's going to add 1 to our counter variable. And again, counter starts at 0, so every time the add button is clicked, it's going to add 1 to the counter variable. So let's develop or go into our OnClick for the sub and do the same thing except subtract. So we're going to say counter minus minus, and that's going to subtract by 1. Alright, the only other thing we need to do is we need to change the display. Again, we have a text view called display, and it has the reference for basically that text within our XML. So we want to change that. What we can do is we can, again, since we imported the text view class within Java, we can use some of those methods from the text view class on our text view. So what we're going to do is just type out our variable name, which was display, and we're going to hit dot. And again, you can use all these methods. And there's a method called setText that we're going to use, and that's going to change the text, or basically set whatever the text is going to be. I wasn't going to scroll to it, but okay, so that's what we're going to use. We're just going to click this, and within here we can do something like your total is space, and then end your quotations, and then hit the plus symbol and put counter. And basically that's going to convert counter into, you can think of it as a string. Again, strings are for words and such like that. So basically it's going to say your total is plus whatever the value of our counter is. So that's pretty neat. And that's what we're going to use. So now that's going to change the text, or set the text of our display that we have set up. Hopefully that made sense. I know I'm kind of going quick through this as well, but you know, that's how it's going to work. That's how our application is going to work. It's going to set the text to quotations, your total is space, and then whatever our int variable called counter is equal to. Now I just want to quickly just say, if you guys try it like this just to get the number, it's not going to work. I mean, the setText won't work like that. You need to have some quotations in there, and then like a plus like that. So just make sure you guys are doing the actual the way that this way, with some text in there and quotations plus whatever our variable counter is. So let's run the application real quick and make sure it works. I'm going to save it and run it quickly. Again, I had the emulator pulled up. Oh, okay, yeah, never mind. Alright, so here's our activity. Let's test it out. So if we click the add one button, it's going to add one to our counter object, and it's going to reset this whole text each time. Our subtract works as well. So you know, we can sell this application to your little brother for like $10,000, and we're pretty much done. I mean, if we make $10,000 off this app by selling it to your little brother, we are golden. Alright, well, hopefully you guys kind of understood that tutorial for the most part. Again, I know it's probably foggy and we're jumping into stuff pretty quickly, but trust me, we're going to go back and kind of cover some of the stuff you guys don't understand. But thanks again for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial.